Oh God, it's so exciting.
Happy Hail Bob Day.
It is a happy Hail Bob Day.
Hello, the Curse of Diarm.
It's the best finishing score we've seen at 5-star level.
That was our elo coming into the competition.
Eventing Manager is back.
Best show that we have, Alphabetti Spaghetti.
Looking forward to seeing quality horses.
Still a great day for Ireland.
Thank you very much for coming on the show.
I mean, you're a bit of an eventing geek just like us.
And it's time to get on with the show.
Welcome to a brand new show on the Eck Ratings Eventing podcast, and the team have very kindly handed me the reins to take over the Grassroots show. So this show all about grassroots eventing, looking at B80 and 90 and 100, event in Ireland 80, 90 and 100, and over in the US beginner, novice, novice and training levels. We'll be having a little look at some of the stats behind grassroots eventing, hopefully have some rider interviews throughout the year and a few tips and tricks along the way. Now, to start things off, we thought we'd have a little look at some of the greatest achievements at grassroots level in 2021. And I have two great guests with me to have a little look at some of these achievements. Our first guest is one of the biggest advocates of grassroots eventing that I know. Diarm, how are you?
Oh, we were both wondering which one of us you were going to pick. Like, we were both sitting here being like, good intro, all going well. Now, big advocate of grassroots eventing, who is it? I'm good. I'm good, Rosie, is the short answer. And I'm delighted. I'm delighted that you're in the driving seat. I'm excited about the show. When you say I'm an advocate for grassroots, I love the excitement of top level sport. I love badmintons and burleys and world games and all that, and Kentucky's and all that comes with that excitement. But I also think that sport is entertainment and sport is fun, and actually it doesn't really matter if you've got the passion and you've got the excitement. It doesn't really need to be at one of those venues. So if you can recreate and capture some of the excitement, some of the achievement that's happening at 80s, at 90s, at 100, the opportunity is massive because it's so competitive. So yeah, I'm excited for the show. I'm excited for the series, and I'm delighted you're in the hot seat and you'll have us.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted that you're on my first show. And our second guest is a man who competes occasionally at grassroots level himself with his young horses, and his wife is the queen of grassroots, I think I must say. Incredibly talented rider. Sam Watson, how are you?
Thank you, Rosie Russell. You have hit the nail on the head. I absolutely take the back seat in my household when it comes to grassroots eventing. But I love it. Yeah, Sparkles is a winning machine, and very competitive as well. And I love it. So, I mean, in the words of Hugh Grant in that great film, Love Actually, it covers all manner of sins, doesn't it? Great grassroots eventing. You have in a way that the heart of the sport, the amateur level, where there are people leaving the start box just as nervous and just as excited as a professional rider leaving the start box at badminton. You know, it's something that someone's been aiming for an awful long time, and it's a huge achievement. You have those professional riders producing their next superstars, and we get to sort of spot the equine talent that's coming through. And then there's the human talent, you know, those younger riders, those juniors, ponies, those levels. It's cool watching that all of that new talent coming through as well. So there's lots happens. If you watch me at grassroots, you see a thoroughly unprepared horse and rider tackling a course, and I think most of the times I've left the saddle have been at 100 level.
Brilliant. Well, it is very exciting, some of these scores that we're going to be looking at, because actually the greatest achievements of grassroots eventing, it's incredible some of the scores that people can go out and get at grassroots. They're so talented, both horse and riders. So we're going to be kicking things off with looking at some of the lowest dressage scores in 2021. So we'll be starting by looking at some scores at British eventing. We'll be starting over in England. So British eventing, 1890 level, the lowest dressage score in 2021, which this isn't the lowest that we're going to be talking about, but it does surprise me how low that some of these can get, was by a horse called Casanova Duke, this 7-year-old gelding, ridden by Becky Hartley. They got a 14.3 at Kelsall Hole in the 90 centimetres. 14.3, I think, is quite incredible. Have you ever got a score like that, Sam?
Oh, I have. I got a 14 point. I finished on a 14.8, I want to say, and I might have had a time fault. So maybe I was 2 seconds over. I just did that, but that was last year, so that was a new record. But I was going to quiz you. I was going to put you on the spot, Rosie Russell, and Diarm Byrne might back you up if you need to phone a friend on this one. The record dressage score at badminton is what, and it was performed by whom?
19.2. This big badminton.
Yeah.
Oliver Townend.
I don't know if it's 19.2, but it's Oliver Townend and it's a 19, isn't it? Kellen Brad and Eva.
Sorry. You're putting Rosie under that pressure. You don't even know.
I was going to see, would she really panic? We've got this new host on the Eventing podcast, we gotta see what she's like under pressure and in the hot seat. So,
to be honest, I think she dealt with that pretty
yeah, that's the right ballpark. Well done. I think you gave the decimal point and everything. I mean, I hope you're right.
I don't know if I'm exactly right, but I knew it was in the 19 region.
Yeah, it was.
Well, go on anyway, Sam. What's the quiz on? What's the link here?
Well, because we're talking about sub 15 dressage scores. We're talking about 5 marks lower than what you see at badminton. And yeah, there's a few, you're obviously going to get some variance in judging. 19.7, Rosie Russell, not 19.2. 19.7. It's all right. Just keep working at it and keep your head down, and you'll get there one day. So why do we see these low scores at Grassroots? And there are two things. You can have a horse who really, really excels from nature in the first phase. They are going to be capable of galloping around the 100s, the 110s. They might not be capable of galloping around 5-star. So that's one of the reasons. You can just have an exceptional dressage horse at these lower levels because there's not as big a demand on the jumping. And then it's just some of it as well is just volume. There's so many runs at this lower level that your outliers just can be a bit more outliery. We're going to probably mention the couple of single figure dressage scores on the show. So it just depends. You can look at it through. It's still obviously an incredible test, but I guess that's the reason why you see it. We can't ignore the fact that half of the reason is these horses don't necessarily have to gallop around get badminton, and the other reason is that sometimes the dressage judges get a bit carried away. It's still cool. Who doesn't want to get? I mean, Sparks is a 12 or something, so she still holds that over me. I don't.
Oh my God! How long did it take, Rosie? How many minutes are we into the show?
I don't know if it's 10, 15.
10 minutes? Okay, that's good because
I haven't mentioned my silver medal yet.
We'll probably, there we go. One thing, Rosie, you'll find as you write the show plans is you have to put a little asterisk in. I know that we're currently dealing with British dressage scores, but you'll have to put a little asterisk in different places where Sam finds ways to crowbar his love for his wife and also this dressage score that she achieved 3 or 4 years ago, I'd say. 4 years ago, Sam?
Probably longer. But every day we just take a moment to reflect and we hold hands and we reflect.
We can always find space for that. Don't worry, Sam.
Fair enough.
But what I absolutely love is, like you say, people get really passionate, and quite rightly so, about these really, really low scores, because in the B100 last year, the lowest dressage score was by a horse called Rameses B, a 12-year-old gelding ridden by Carrie Skelton. And this blew me away. 5.5 at Norton Disney. 5.5. I get that just on the dressage sheet for a bad circle.
That's a single movement. Yeah. 5.5 is just a standard one of the 20 movements that we have to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Incredible. Now that, there's no smoke without fire. So, you can argue whether it should have been a 5.5 or 15.5, but it was probably an exceptional piece of art. Dressage art, and there's 3 things that we're going to cover in this show that I think are exceptional. So that we're on the low scores right now, and those outliers, and they are class because everyone loves a PB, and everyone should know what their PB is. And if you don't, go and have a little snoop for it. We're going to talk about clear jumping streaks, and I like those as well. And again, when we get into this, we'll talk about why we might get carried away with a horse that has 5 clears from 5 runs at 5-star. Whereas when we're talking about grassroots, we're more looking for horses that maybe have 10 clears from 10, because of the different baseline clear rates. So we'll do a little bit of quick maths when it comes to that part of the show, and then winning strike rates as well. And there's one of those is going to come up in this BE segment where horses have big winning strike rates. And actually, that's the one that I love, particularly in BE, where you always know those sample sizes are pretty big and healthy. So some good numbers around those coming up as well. Sorry to just ruin the show plan there, Rosie, but that was my little tangent.
No, that's absolutely fine. No problem at all.
I have a tangent for you, Rosie, if you'd like one.
Go for it.
If we're on tangents, I feel I should also contribute. Ramises B. Would you like to know a little bit more about Ramises B?
I'd love to.
Not necessarily the 5.5, because I think that is outrageously good. We'll probably never see that beaten anywhere in the world. But Ramises B, everybody, is an Egyptian prince. Now we're talking good stuff. An ancient Egyptian crown prince from the 19th dynasty. Sometimes known as Ramises, sometimes just known as Ramises B.
Wow, I never knew that. That is a good fun fact.
It didn't sound like it was.
No, I hadn't done that much research into Ramises B. So no, I appreciate that. As we move on to the US, one thing I find interesting here is the 2 lowest dressage scores for beginner, novice, and novice. They're categorized as one section. And then for US training, they're quite similar. They're only a point or so apart. So the beginner, novice section, the record is held by R. Rocky, 12-year-old gelding, ridden by Lauren Gentile. They have an 18.6 at Mystic Valley Hunt Club. And the US training record is held by F.E. Celestino, 8-year-old gelding, ridden by Alicia Phillips, 17.1 at Rocking Horse. So both those scores are quite similar, but they're well below the average dressage scores for the US. The average dressage score at beginner, novice, and novice is 34.2. And the average at training is 34.1. So again, both quite close, but those 2 top dressage scores are well below the average.
I like that you mentioned the average, because again, there's 2 things. So you're I guess what this show is covering, if you have an exceptional talent and you are aiming for a big season, which people are, those exceptional scores are where your head is at. But most people are going to be in and around that. We did a lot of, one of the kind of big equiratings metrics that we push is your 6RA, your 6-run average, which is based on your dressage score. It's really good. It's one of the phases where you don't need to get too complex on your algorithms to get a good feel of expected scores. If you average your last 6 dressage scores, that's a pretty good ballpark as to where you're at. Harder to do in show jumping and cross country. You've got to get a little bit more complex in terms of getting figures on your reliability. So if your 6-run average is in and around that 34, you shouldn't be despair. Like that's the average, and it's good to know, and it's good to have that kind of that reference point. And then if you're setting goals and you're setting out for the season, you've got to balance between aiming for other people's performance can be a bit of a distraction. Kind of rule number 1 is control your own controllables. Look at where you are now, and then try and shave, a credible amount of marks off that. If your 6-run average is up in the 40s, even aiming for a 34 is probably too big a jump. But if you're 1 or 2 points below average at the moment, your 6-run average is in around 35, 36, it's nice, and it's probably an achievable goal to think, okay, let's try and swing it down below the actual national average at this level. And then you have all those real benchmarks like, oh, what if I get it below 30? Those kind of natural little steps that you get as well. So I like that we're championing what exceptional looks like, but I like your reference also to what average looks like. And it's very interesting that there's like 0.1 of the difference between US and BE. So basically, when it comes to scoring, no difference between, you know, where in the world you're doing your grassroots eventing.
Yeah, I found that very interesting. And like you say, the dressage scores, the average dressage scores across BE, US and Ireland, they're all very similar, all at about 33, 34 for the average across all levels and 3 countries. So I found that fascinating as well.
In a way, not a massive surprise, but it could be. Like, there is a difference in the clear rates will be an interesting one as well, you know, that we can look at. Like this grassroots segment here on the Eventing podcast, I think is here to stay, because I think it touches a lot of, you know, it holds a lot of relevance for a lot of different people. As we mentioned at the top of the show, young horses, young riders, amateur riders, it's where the volume of the sport is at. And I think whether it's how to set smart goals, how to get into the top 5%, or what does the top 5% look like, what does average look like, you know, all our little specials that we throw in on the podcast around this as well, in terms of nutrition, all that sort of stuff, it all kind of feeds into this. But I like getting into the numbers. We're so analytical of the 5-star level. I think it's nice to get analytical here at this at these levels as well, and the comparison side of it as well. Like, the goal will be to do some connected competitions between these different national federations. But no spoilers, and no letting it out too much. That literally was a spoiler, wasn't it? But we will hold our horses on that one for now.
Yeah, you've got a very big reveal. There's going to be a very big new reveal after we talk about connected competitions. But it is exciting, isn't it, when you think, I know I referenced it at the start of the show, but just the size and the amount of what we're talking about here, you know, the amount of runs. Rosie, give us an idea, like across the 3 countries, in terms of volume of runs, what are we looking at? You know, 100s, 80s, 90s.
So across the 3 countries, and with all the levels put together of grassroots, there's 69,000 runs, 19,500 horses, and 15,000 athletes, which is astonishing.
A year, yeah. So 70,000 odd runs a year. Sam, what's international eventing as a whole? It's
20. It'll be this year. It'll hit a record this year. Obviously, with COVID, it's been a little bit negatively impacted. But this new intro level, which is the 105, which is kind of an international grassroots level, almost. Like, I think it's within for the people on this show that we're talking about at 100 level, training level if you're in the US, B100 if you're in the UK. These 1-star internationals 105s are growing rapidly. I think they accounted for about 10% of starters last year in just its second year, I want to say. So I would say we will see upwards of 22,000 starts at FEI this year. And I think that by next year, we could be getting up to 25,000, rapidly growing.
What I think is interesting there is international eventing on the whole is such a big, you know, it's a big talked about concept. I don't just mean around those showcase levels at the very top of the sport, but that whole idea of like going to the international in your country, or going, you know, doing my first international, or stepping up from a 2-star to a 3-star. There's a lot of talk and excitement around international eventing. But when you think that actually grassroots eventing across those 3 countries, Ireland, the UK and the US, is actually more than 3 times the size of the entire international eventing field. You know, so 70,000 odd runs against 22,000 runs. It gives an idea as to why we wanted to do a grassroots show, why we want to work and why we do work with the USCA, with Eventing Ireland, with British Eventing, why there's so much potential in terms of Sam's talking about connected leagues and, you know, showcasing these levels more and more. It's actually just makes so much sense. There is so much fun and action and sport happening that it feels a bit pointless to be talking about 4 or 5 stars, you know, a little bit more now, but, you know, to be just talking about, you know, 100 people in the year. And of course you need those showcase levels of any sport, but I just feel there's so much fun, so much to talk about here that, yeah, we're absolutely not going to be short on ideas, concepts, theories. I don't think we should be afraid to bring the show to like do some nerd things and talk about your averages and your distance from winning scores and your cross country clear rates at different levels and at different times of the year, because we do all that analysis anyway. But I think, as you say, fun to focus on those big standout moments like a 5.5 score, fun to focus on the lowest finishing scores and the most wins and the most clear rounds and those achievements. But equally, I just think you can spread this show so wide, Rosie, over the next few months. We'll see where it takes us, but it should be a bit of a fun journey, I hope.
And I've really enjoyed looking into some of this research, because some of the scores, the riders, the facts, it's really, really fascinating at Grassroots. It's not, some people have that perception that it's just going out for a doddle. And it most certainly isn't, because people are seriously, seriously competitive.
Like, what you've got to look for is, there's no point in saying that, 5 consecutive clears at 100 level is the same as 5 consecutive clears at 5-star. It's not. But what we see is we still see the outliers. So at 5-star, the base clear rate is 55%. So the likelihood of having 5 consecutive clears is actually only 5%. So you'd only expect, if you had 20 horses that went and did 5 runs at 5-star, you'd only expect 1 to be able to jump clear cross country 5 times in a row. So that's your kind of outlier performer. When you move to Grassroots, your baseline clear rate moves up to 80%. So to do 10 clears in a row at your 100 level, where your baseline clear rate is 80%, you have a 10% chance. So actually 1 in 10 horses will do those 10 in a row. If you still become that outlier, and some go on to do 12, 13, 14 clear in a row, but you still end up with your outlier. So you can still champion performance. You just have to champion it. And that's why Equi Ratings have a look at Grassroots as well. It would be false to kind of, and false praise to champion things in the same way. But we are talking about like the scores that you're talking about in terms of going into single figure scores. And a really cool one is John Paul Sheffield had 4 wins from 6 runs. Now, JP, based in the UK, you can expect there to be about 40 starters in each of those classes and competitions. So he's just, he's already putting himself in the top 2.5% just by winning and beating 40 people. To do that 4 times from 6 runs is less than a 0.001% chance. It's extreme outlier stuff to go and win 4 from 6 when you're competing against 40 opponents. If you're competing against 10 opponents, completely different. But that is, top class performance. And the number of opponents that you're competing against absolutely matters, and it's what makes the difference. And it's why some of the grassroots leagues that Equi Ratings will be bringing into all of these federations in 2022 and beyond is actually going to be around concepts like, opponent beating percentage and that sort of stuff.
That is incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I've actually found one horse that lived up to your 10 out of 10 clears, like you say, Sam. So from Eventing Ireland at 1890 level, Bohere Cookies and Creme, a 13-year-old mare ridden by Katie McCann, 11 out of 11 clears last year, which that's pretty impressive, that 100% record, because I know you say it's an 80% clear rate, but to have that throughout the season, I was quite impressed.
Yeah, and it's the pressure building as you do it. I think that's key as well, because you start to become like, I think anyone listening to this or anyone who's ridden before, like you're riding a horse who's kind of 5 clears in a row. You start to notice it and talk about it. Those lower levels, you're still going, oh, he's rock solid cross country, isn't he or she? And you're at 5 from 8, and then you're 6 from 6, 7 from 7, 8 from 8. And, and the streak doesn't necessarily end. The season probably ends before the streak ends. And you have the perfect season. You have that nice big streak. And it's cool. It's cool to highlight that, I think. And it's cool because it becomes where we open the show talking about those really low scores. won't be on the table for every horse and every rider out there. Mainly we'll go kind of horse first when it comes to that. But actually those clear rates you can double that up with double clears. So clear cross country and clear show jumping, giving, future content for future shows here. Cause again, you just make the likelihoods all that more difficult. So putting double clear streaks together is obviously much harder. And then our favorite, the FOD, finishing on your dressage score, where you keep that absolute clean sheet. And doing that, multiple times in a season is huge achievement, but multiple times in a row. And again, putting those runs together, again, top class achievement. And you become an outlier in your field in a different guise almost, or a different area of performance. Some will be outliers in scores, some will be outliers in terms of their jumping performance.
Definitely. And I think it's really nice that we have the different metrics and things to highlight the jumping skills of some of these horses, because a lot of people think that you've got to go out there and smash the dressage, which a lot of people are, and it's incredible. But if you're sat on a horse that's not going to smash the dressage, you've still got really fun metrics to look at on how good your horse is at jumping. And I think that that's nice to be able to bring into it, that it's not all just about the dressage, which a lot of people can think it is at grassroots level. As we move on from some of our dressage divas, what does it take to finish on that dressage score? What are the lowest scores in 2021, the lowest finishing scores of 2021, I should say? And starting again with BE, we have some very, very low scores. And in fact, I also have the average finishing scores here. And from England, US and Ireland, everybody has smashed the average finishing scores. So 1890 in BE, Casanova Duke, a 7-year-old gelding, ridden by Becky Hartley, they hold the lowest finishing score of 2021 of 14.3 at Castle Hall in the 90 centimetres. So they managed to finish on that dressage score that we mentioned earlier, which is impressive to keep hold of such a low score, because also when you're so low, it depends on the rest of the section, but can be easy to, add a couple time penalties and know that you're probably still going to win. So to be able to FOD is impressive.
And what is the average finishing score at 100 in B?
44.
44.
80 and 90, is 46.7.
Okay. 40, yeah. That's true as well, in that there's a bit of a curve in terms of where we see the scoring trends, and actually 100 is really where it peaks, or I guess because it's the lowest score that wins, it's where the dip is at its lowest. Slightly higher scores then basically at 90 and 80, and then the scores as you go up the levels then become higher as well. But so your average finishing score mid-40s, and you have someone here finishing mid-teens, 30 marks. That's a nice big gap. But again, like, it won't include non-completions as well. So there's you always have a bit of eventing is like, it gets a complex enough of sport to be analyzing from that point of view. But you're looking at an average finishing score, which is 10 marks above your average dressage score. So on average, people are adding 10 marks, and you'll have people leaving the competition, although your non-completions at grassroots aren't that high. I think that's good information for people as well, because if you're someone who finds yourself adding penalties at the moment, whether it's show jumping, whether it's time penalties, whether it's the all cross country mistake, again, you know that, okay, well, on average, people at this level are adding 10 marks their dressage score. So if I can get mine under control a little bit more and get it more towards average, and then start to creep it down, let's try and have an average add of less than 8 penalties this season. But again, all about goal setting, because it just becomes, maybe it's not for everyone, but certainly in terms of, I know there are plenty of people who want to improve, who want to get better. And I think that this sort of progression and this way of measuring your progression can be really, really satisfying. And again, that whilst the difficult thing of eventing is it's hard to crack everything on one day, the upshot of eventing is that usually there's one phase where you have improved one of your metrics. Even on a day when the show jumping didn't go to plan, hopefully your 6 on average has come down by a little bit, or your cross country rate has gone up by a little bit. And there's some positives to take from it.
Yeah, definitely. And the average dressage score in BE for 100, I say 44.2, so a little bit lower than in the 80 and 90. And the record holder for 100 is Marchwood, an 11-year-old gelding run by Grace Donner, who finished on 10 at Norton Disney. So she was well below that average again.
She got a 10.
She got 10.
I mean, sometimes some of these scores they get wild enough, don't they? Like finishing on a 10. I mean, it is amazing. It's that idea that that you've both mentioned. Focus on someone who can finish on a 10 and put their name in highlights. So important for nobody to start thinking it's a normal thing to finish on a 10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And totally irrelevant, but it makes me very happy. It's a very clean score, 10.0.
I agree, actually. I like that as well.
Yeah, so it's very rare to be getting down that low. And in Ireland, the records are the same. A 15.3 is the record at 80 and 90 by Ringwood Calypso and Victoria Scully. And in the 100, it's a 6.5 by Sarah Ennis. So ridiculously low scores, way below the average. But your averages are all pretty similar. Event in Ireland average 80 and 90, 44.4. In the 100, 40.6. So they're all about the same averages across 3 countries. So if that's your target, that is the average is in the 40s. But there is some people out there absolutely smashing it with 15.3s and 6.5s.
Yeah, I think the US training, so 100 level in the US is Effie Celestino and Alyssa Phillips. But Alyssa Phillips is a name I expect we'll be talking about when we're talking about that 100 level or training level in the US season last year, not just with this horse, but also with Cornelius Bow, but I think they're just called Cornelius. But they basically, I think they won 4 of they did some, baby internationals last year and 2-star internationals. I think they won 4 of their 5 internationals with Cornelius. And Effie Celestino, I think, began to appear on dressage record and finishing score records at 100 in the US when I was looking at it. So I expect that Alyssa Phillips' name from Grassroots and above becomes one that we start seeing again and again, Rosie.
Yeah, definitely.
There's going to be a little bit of a Watson meeting debrief this evening because all-time finishing score records in Ireland, Sarah Ennis, the 6.5, which was last year as well. Best dressage score, she finished on it. Best finishing score, 6.1. Complete outlier. Wild score. Ella Boyle needs a little bit of a pep talk. She's got the second best dressage score, 10.5. She slipped a couple of marks. She added 2 penalties, so she still has the second best finishing score. Hannah Watson is just crowbarring it in there, 12.3, third on the dressage. Could be second on PB if she finished on it, but 2 seconds over. She's dropped to 5th. In terms of the finishing PB, she's let 3 people ahead of her.
Oh dear, how terrible.
So it does happen, like when you crack that dressage, folks, don't get complacent. Go and finish on it. 3 phases here. Seal it, get it over the line.
Ella was a winner of the Power Average League, sponsored by Equiloom, which she was on a show earlier with Nicole, and it'd be really interesting to hear how she works on her dressage and her goals for the year, because she absolutely smashed it.
A great reference, Rosie. Power Average, super season metric. I'm getting more sincere again now. Sincere Sam is back in the room. Power Average is the average of your 3 best scores. So if you, and loads of people will be doing this, particularly this time of year, like it's a really relevant show for start of the season, and you're thinking about goals for your season, go and look back at last season's Power Average. So the average of your 3 best scores. And that's a great thing to try and improve, because you need a level of consistency with that. If you want to couple it on the, that if you have 2 goals, make one your power average and make the other your clear rate, your cross country reliability. And then you're doing both. Then you're working with your consistency on one hand, but with your power average, your PB is obviously going to be a little bit judge impacted. You need the rub of the green. We've all gone and done what we feel is a horse's best test, and then realized that even though we might be quite well placed in that section, the judge was a little bit stingy and all the marks are a little bit high. And this happens more at grassroots, I think, than it does at international level, because obviously the judges at international level, there's they're more of the same people. They're judging with each other more frequently. I mean, people still give out about it, but there's less variance. You'll see at like a Europeans marks coming in about 2.5-ish below people's average. So we would say on that day that scores were about 2.5 on the easy side. Tokyo was the opposite. I think it was a couple of marks on the hard side, mainly because of the test actually rather than the judges. So you get that kind of 2 or 3 mark variance. But at the grassroots level, you obviously, like that day in Norton Disney that you mentioned there for in BE, and I think it was up in Torella when Sarah Ennis did her 6.5. But those are clearly, they're too big an outlier to actually be genuinely just the performance. Like that has to be judge related as well.
Definitely. Thank you, Sam, for all your insights and stats so far on the show. I know that you've got a hop, but it's been really fascinating to have a little look into some of the metrics that are available for people to look at.
And that, Eventing Podcast listeners, is code for when Sam gets too deep into the numbers, just kick him off the show.
Goodbye.
Rosie, thank you for having me on the Grassroots Pod, and I look forward to being back. And yeah, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.
No problem at all. So it's just me and Dee left to talk through the most wins of 2021. And there is quite a few astonishing records here, I must admit. So we'll be starting again with BE, but I know that there'll be one in the US, Dee, that you are very eager to talk about.
Okay, hang on. Okay, I'm ready. Go. Where are we starting? We're starting BE.
So we're starting with BE. I'll kick things off. So the 1890 record is held by Castle Forbes Roscoe last year. 17-year-old geldings, an experienced chap, ridden by Stephen Rankin. 4 out of 10 wins. So 10 runs, 4 wins. 10 runs is quite a lot of runs. They did very well to win 4 of them, especially at the 1890 level that, there's a lot of entries in those classes like Sam was going on about. So to win 4 of them is very impressive. And the B100 record is held by Animal Lad, a 12-year-old gelding ridden by Annie Smith. They had 7 runs and won 5 of them, which that blew me away. Only going out and not winning 2 of them is quite exceptional. When I go out an event, if I win 1 of them, I'd be jumping up and down in excitement. So to win 5 was very impressive. But I think over in the US at training level, there's a horse that you quite like the look of, Dee.
Reverie, Rosie. How many times have you heard me say that name in the office? Did a great year last year. 6 wins, 7 appearances. I mean, we talk about consistency, but to come out and win 6 times, to have 6 ones beside your name is incredible. One of them, one of the big wins, of course, for them last year. This is Shelby Murray that we're talking about. So Shelby Murray and Reverie was, of course, the AECs. So junior training champion at the AECs last year as well. We've mentioned, or I mentioned briefly earlier, Alyssa Phillips. I think Shelby Murray's the exact same. I think Reverie's a name that you're going to see possibly graduating through the levels, but absolutely going to dominate when we're talking about these low scores and these wins. Like to win 6 from 7, Rosie, to give you an idea, you're into when you get into consecutive runs of wins like this, you start targeting like all-time international records. Get into that 6 consecutive international wins is the most we've seen in the last 10 years. We've had a few people land on that. But you're into serious records when you start getting into this area. So yeah, I think huge potential and an incredible 2021 season.
It is very impressive. And over in Ireland, the record holder for 80 and 90 is held by Newtown's Silver Bobby, an 11-year-old gelding ridden by Aoife Hamratty. Another one who had a great season, 6 runs and 5 wins. So a bit like Reverie. A really, really impressive season, especially with that consistency, because very, very few people go out there and have runs like this. And that's why I wanted to do this show, is to highlight some of the great achievements that people have had in 2021. To maybe, these are huge aspirations for the majority of people to go out and try and get 5 wins out of 6 runs. But I just wanted to highlight how impressive that some of these are and some of the averages, so that people, when they start their seasons, can go out and go, right, okay, I know roughly what the average is. I know that I'm kind of on par with my other competitors and what they need to get to smash the dressage or get the most wins on the record, so that we can just highlight some of the great achievements and appearances of grassroots riders and horses.
While I was looking at that, Rosie, I was looking at, you were talking about the Irish 2021 record of Newtown Silver Bobby. Looking at, I see at 80 and 90, we had one horse on the list in 2021 who had 2 wins in Grateful for Gold. Grateful for Gold, Rosie, is ridden by Ailsa Martin. They had 2 wins at 80 and 90 in 2021. But the reason that I am highlighting them is 2 wins are just going towards the cumulative. If we go to the all-time record holders at this level in Ireland, and you can do this on the Eventing Ireland website, by the way, you can just go to the Eventing Ireland Stats Centre and click into your all-time stats and then select the level. So right now I'm looking at all-time stats and I'm looking at 80s and 90s. And right up at the top of the list in terms of horse wins is Grateful for Gold, tied with Mixed Up and Twilight Thunder, all on 7 wins. But Rosie, in terms of appearances and cross-country jumping clears at this level of the sport, Grateful for Gold, I don't know if you know this. Do you know?
No, I don't.
72 runs, the all-time appearance holder, 54 of those cross-country jumping clears. So Grateful for Gold is 18 now, but a hugely seasoned campaigner at 80 and 90, and one of those. So you'll come across these type of horses. Think Tank Tink, I think, in BE tends to dominate a lot of the grassroots records, or certainly novice level records over there. But Grateful for Gold at 80 and 90 is one of those stalwart campaigners. 72 runs at these levels, over the last, over the last, I suppose, 10 years now, of 10 years of Eventing Ireland data. 7 wins in that time. As I say, 54 cross-country clears. And it's just worth highlighting those. They only had 2 wins this year. But guess what? They had 2 more wins this year is what I'm trying to get to. Like, this is someone who's been, a key part of this level of the sport, and now starting, I hope, to try and get a bit of recognition for a brilliant 80-90 career in Ireland.
Exactly, Dee. That is an astonishing amount of runs. And like you say, 2 wins to add on to however many there's been before, because it's
5,
great to highlight.
5 before, yeah. Actually, you're right, because we might, Rosie, have missed some in the kind of pre-Eck ratings period. If they were getting some wins at that level pre-2011, they might even be further up there. But right now, they are joint at the top of the win list with 7.
It's incredible, really, really incredible. And that's what I love, is that we can now highlight some of these horses that are doing such a great job at the grassroots level, that because some horses will stay at grassroots level, they stay at 80, 90 or 100 for their whole career. And these careers are seriously impressive. What did you say? How many runs, Dee?
72. Just that one horse, just Grateful for Gold,
72.
just the 80s and 90s, 72 runs.
That is incredible, and quite rightly so deserves a mention on this show, because to keep running 80 and 90 for that many times, and think of the experience they've given their riders, and yeah, just incredible. Really, really impressed with that.
It's fun, I think, when you start getting to, I mentioned Think Tank Tink, just looking at 80, 90 and 100 in terms of just appearances, Rosie. Think Tank Tink, 142 runs at 80, 90 and 100 since 2010. And I suppose you just get to a point where you start really, I think this stuff is fun. You start finding like little interesting bits. When I looked at riders in Ireland, and I was thinking, okay, what rider is going to be dominating 80 and 90? And to my horror, I found that it wasn't even an Irish rider, that it was Amanda Goldsberry, who has arrived over and absolutely dominated. Not just at this level, but at loads of levels of the sport. It's been a huge success in Ireland, and a great addition to the Irish eventing scene. Amanda Goldsberry has 14 wins at 80, 90s in Ireland. And you start, I suppose, or my hope, Rosie, is we start going through these lists and just having a bit more, having a bit of fun at these all-time records, like Luke Dre, 11 wins, Felicity Ward, 10 wins, Caroline Lynch, 9, Heidi Hamilton, 9, Terence White, 9. I think it'll be a bit of crack, like when they land on 10 wins, that we actually, send them a message and celebrate them on the show. And we'll find our flow with the podcast, where we start having our little maybe there'll be a little section of milestone moments where, you know, whether it's in Ireland, whether it's BE, and we're looking at some of the people land let's just go back to BE 80, BE 90. I think the record holder is retired last year, or maybe in 2020. Cool Lodge Socks, 25 wins at 80-90. But I mean, Rosie, she's not even the record win holder for a rider at the level 80 and 90. Miss Melissa Joanides is the champ. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm so nervous when Nicole's not with me. Normally, like, she'll nudge me and say, "This is how you pronounce things properly." But, you know, if you're a young lad from Offaly in Ireland, then you can probably just say it however you want, and no one will mind. So, Miss Melissa Joanides, you are the champ of 80 and 90 right now, the record win holder with 32 wins at this level since 2010. So, no one is up there at that level yet. I hope, Rosie, we get a little mile. I don't want to stay doing this forever because there's so much of this stuff in here, but I hope we can have a little milestone moment in your show in the future, and we'll try and list some of the all-time record holders and 2022 records as they unfold as well.
Definitely. That sounds like such a good plan, Dee. Thank you for being on the show and bringing up some of the great achievements of 2021. I think there's been some outstanding performances by horses and riders, and we'll be keeping an eye on these stats centres to make sure we capture everybody's milestone moments. Thank you, listeners, for listening, and we'll be back very soon with more.
Thank you for listening to the Equeratings Eventing podcast.
Have a wonderful day, everybody, and I look forward to having you back with us soon.
Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more.
Listeners, we'll speak to you again soon.